So go back to here, back to there, do this. Start streaming. Alright, we're back. We are COMP123 in the summer 2019 semester at Centennial, and it's week 10, part 4 of our broadcast. I got that one right this time. And we're talking this time about some multiple Windows forms. What do you do when you have multiple Windows forms? I also want to talk about some stuff for assignment 4 in lab 10. That's what I'm doing this thing for, because people have trouble, and I want to help you guys so you guys can get top marks. Alright, so we just finished talking about exception handling at a very high level. And now I want to go back in and create a new application. So I'm going to go into Visual Studio. Come with me. Let's do it together. I'm going to go to File, New, Project. And again, if you notice, here's my application, right? I want to put it in COMP123. I'm also adding to source control, GitHub. And if I go up here and I change the name, so I'll say COMP123 in the summer 2019 semester, and it's lesson 10, and you guys are the A team. Lesson 10A. Then we can see that this is what my application is going to be called. I'm going to press OK. One person asked today, I said, are you with me? And she said, oh no, I'm not. I'm too slow, right, kind of thing. Guys, you can't be slow at making Windows forms anymore. We've done a lot of different examples. You should be fairly quick at understanding the properties of a Windows form. So example, if I want to change the size of the window, I know where to go. I know how to center the window on the screen. I should know how to make the background different colors. I did that a bunch of times. So you should know all those things already. So here, what I want to do in my form, I want to do a couple things. I want to prepare. And the first thing I want to do here at my Windows form is I want to rename this thing. Let's rename it. So again, I go right-click, rename. I rename this to main form, like I asked you to do in your, oops. Let's rename that again. That was bad. I want main form. Yes. Okay. Main form. Okay. And then what I want is I want another form. So how do I get other forms? There's a couple ways. I can right-click on my project, right, and I can go add. And if you notice, there is a quick hit down here, Windows form. I can do that. Add Windows form. Or I can go to new item. Let's do the new item way. New item is up here. New item. Add new item. So I clicked on this. Right-clicked on my project. Add new item. That's the way I'm doing it right now. And then I can notice Windows form is number 3. But if you want it alphabetical, up here you can say name ascending. So I can go find Windows forms way down here. It doesn't matter. It's a Windows form. It's important, by the way, you add the right thing. You can add other things. That would be wrong. And then in my Windows form, I'm going to call this start form. So now I have start form and main form. And you know what? I have one more I'm going to make. I'm going to make end form this time around. Something else. Okay? So let's make another one, which is something different than what I did earlier, but that's okay. I'm going to add a new item. But this time let's do the Windows form here, the quick hit one. Quick hit. And then it brings me here anyway, right? And then I just say end form. So I've got 3. I've got start form, main form, and end form. I got 3 different forms, right? And I want to go from one form to the other. I want to traverse one form to the other, right? But let's do this. Let's go to my start form, and let's do the properties on my start form. And if you look at start form, I have these weird properties. Let's make all my forms. Here's what I want you guys to do, all right? And I want to race. I want to see how you guys can do this fast. Each form is going to have 800 by 600. Each form is going to appear on the center screen. Each form is going to have a font size of 20. These are all things we've done before. Okay, all 3 forms, go. Let's see if I can do it faster than you. Right, so I'm going to go to properties for the form. Right, I'm going to go to my font. And hopefully you guys can do faster than me. 20, and then I'm going to change my size. Notice I do size second. I do size second because if you do it first, you have to do it again. And then I'm going to go down to my start position, center screen. Save. And then I'm going to go to my solution, do it again for my main form. Main form, I want to get to the properties of my main form. Right here it is. I'm going to go to, again, my font size. Right? Now, it says end form, but I want main form. So that's wrong. Main form, properties, font, 20. Like I even made a mistake. Okay? And then I'm going to go down to my size, which is 800 by 600. And I change my Windows default location to center screen. Next. Now I'll go to my solution and go to my start form. And center screen. I'll go up to the font size. 20. You guys beat me? Good. Excellent. That's how it should be. I'm an old guy. You guys should be faster than me. All right. One more thing you got to do is in my start form, please change all your names so they make sense. So that the title bar says start form, main form, and end form. Yes.
Machine, can you just like do one for change the setting that may copy of object and then change it just for me after?
You can copy paste, but the problem is your resx file might be weird. So be careful.
Okay.
But yes, you could do it that way. Start form, and then I go to my main, and I make sure that says main form. And I'll go to my end form, and it says end space form. There, I'm done. You guys should be done. I took my time. If you're not done, you're too slow. Sorry to tell you that. I'm sorry, but yeah, I have to tell you because you know what? At the end of the day, I gave you the instructions. You have the same kind of capabilities I have. I went pretty slow. I didn't rush. And in a test, I'm going to get you to do a lot of things, right? So you need to be a little faster, guys, right? If you're not done yet, that's a good indicator that you don't practice enough, or maybe you have somebody else doing your stuff, or whatever, or you're working with somebody else. You got to do it on your own. I was talking to a couple of people earlier today that work together in the same family, and they're in their class, you know, as an example, and you know, what we want to do is, that's okay. We can help each other, even if you're brother, sister, cousin's uncle, or whatever, or your friends, right? But the thing is, it's important. You guys are here to learn on your own, so that way you guys can do it by yourself. In an interview, you should be able to answer all the questions on your own. All right? All right. So we did all this work. It's nice. We did some nice work. But now let's talk about how to go from Form 1 to Form 2 to Form 3 and so on. Let's prep. I'm going to prep first. So in my start form, I know I need to go to the next form, which is, I want a next button. So let's make a next button. So I'm going to go to Toolbox. I'm going to go to Button. I'm going to drag and drop a button onto my form. I'll make it a little bigger. It doesn't have to be perfect, just like this, so it fits the words. And I'm going to call this button Next, right? So kind of put Next in there. And then I'm going to call this button the Next Button. So Next Button. I'm going to put this button on the bottom right corner of the form. Okay, here's a question. Why would I put it in the bottom right corner of the form? Remember we talked about user experience. Because we've seen it before, right? We've seen if it's bottom right corner, it means you're going to go to the right. Bottom left corner means you're going to go to the left. Makes sense, right? However, you don't have to put it there. There's people who put it on the top right corner, or the people put these arrows, so they're not actual like next. It's like an arrow to the right, an arrow to the left. Any kind of indication to the user that you're going to the next form or whatever is okay. So I've got my next button, yeah? Okay, but look, I want the next button to be used again. I'm going to need it for main form because main form is going to go to end form. So I'm going to copy the next button. Now this is something new. When I copy it inside, it changes the name. But if I copy it to the next form, it actually keeps the name too. Why is that? How come I can have the same name in a different form? Can anyone answer that question? Why can't I have the same button name in the next form? Yeah. What? Well, that's the reason why I'm making it the same name, but why can't I do it? I can't do it in the same form. I can only have one object named next button in my main form, right? No, it'd be nice if you did that, but no. Well, here's the answer. The answer is, don't think about these forms as forms, guys. Think about these forms as classes. These are classes. All these things are classes. So if I have a class, if every one of my forms had a next button, every single one of my forms, then in my mind I'm thinking, wait, maybe my class, I should make my own class, right? I don't know, Tom class. And my Tom class has next button and it has back button. Just saying, right? I could. I'm not going to do that here. We're going to talk about inheritance. It's called actually visual inheritance is what it's called. I could talk visual inheritance to you later, but not today. So here I just copied the form, and of course it can have the same name because it's a different class. And I can have the exact same property in a different class, as many classes as I want, the same property. For example, if I had two classes, class A and class B, and both of them had a name property, no clash, because a name in class A is different than a name in class B. Two different objects. Okay, so now we need a back button. So I want to go to my main form, and I want to have a back button, and it kind of looks like this one. It kind of looks like the next button, but it's going to say back, and it's going to be over here. So I'm going to take the next button, copy, and I'm in my main form here, and I'm going to paste, right? I'm going to push this button over here on the left side, right? And this button, I'm going to just rename it. Notice it changed to button 1 anyway. I'm going to rename it to back button. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to change this to back. Okay, great. I have all my designs. Back button, next button. In my start form, I only have a next button. And in my end form, I only have I should have a back button. Let's get that back button. So which one? I could do lots of stuff. Yeah, be careful with that though. Sometimes it'll reform. Remember, in a real case scenario, this is not a real case scenario, I might put a layout, and my layout would have the button in the exact position that I want, in the exact size I want, inside of a cell. Like, there's lots of stuff you can do here, right? So, just accept it for now, and let's run with it, okay? So, yes, in my end form, I want a back button, so I copy the back button from main form, right? So I have a back button, and I go to my end form and paste, and put it down here. So now my end form has a back button, my start form has a next button, and my main form has both buttons. Why? Because I can go back and forth. My start is the start, my end is my end, those are my end points, and my main goes both back and forth between the two. That's what I wanted to do. Alright? Now this is different than your Lab 10. Lab 10 only wants you to go one direction. Right? And how do you get back? That's the question. So what I told you to do in Lab 10 was do the following. I said, okay, well, let's go into start form, and if I double click on my next button, right? If I double click on my next button, in my next button dot click in my start form, I can specify a couple things. One, I want to hide this form, so I can say something like this dot hide. What happens if I close this form? What happens with close? So there's hide, there's show, and there's close. That's what they are. There's three different things now, three different methods. The hide method just makes it invisible, and it doesn't even make it minimized. It makes it invisible. It takes it away. It stops drawing it, basically. Just don't draw the form is what it says, okay? The close method closes the form. It basically destroys the form. It's no longer available. It's like it calls the destructor. That's what it does, okay? And the show shows the form. It actually displays the form and draws it. And by the way, there's different show methods. There's show and show dialog. Okay, two different things. Show uses, you can, get away from the form, no problem. Show dialog, what that does is you can't do anything with the other forms until something is resolved in this form. For example, if I have an OK cancel button, that's a dialog that comes up, right? OK cancel, I can't do anything else until I press OK or cancel. That's modal, a modal form. Here, when I do show and hide, I'm using a modeless form. Modeless. Modal, modeless, right? That's what they're called. So modeless is what I'm doing here. I'm just showing and hiding, right? If I close, I cancel my form. All right. So first I want to hide this one. I want to hide start form, and I want to show the next form. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. I don't have a next form. Even though I made them, remember I made the classes, start form, main form, and end form. The classes are there. But I never instantiated main form, and I never instantiated end form. I never did. Why? How do I know this? Because if you look in your Solution Explorer, there's a new thing we haven't talked about called program.cs, right? And you've seen something like this before when you were doing console applications, right? Look, new main form. Do I see new start form? Do I see new end form? Nope. Guess what? They don't exist. So if I want to try and get to my end form, to my main form or my anything else, I can't. In fact, if I want to start with my start form, I got to change this from a new main form to a new start form. Okay, that's what I asked you guys to do. Go to your program CS and change this to new start form. But if I did this, right, if I do this and run it, you can see that it pops up, but then I can't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It just hides this one. That's what it does, right now. So I go to my start form, it hides this one. How do I show the next one? Okay, there's good ways to do this, there's bad ways to do this, there's really bad ways to do this, right? And there's much better ways to do it. We're going to explore a bunch of those things, okay? Here's a bad way to do this, okay? And we'll talk about why it's bad in a second. Here, I want to make a new object of type main form. So I do this. I say main form is equal to new main form. I could do this. This is bad, right? And then what I can say is like main form dot show, right? And this dot hide. Yay. Why is this bad? Very bad. Yes. Well, it's going to be lost. Never mind, right? So I can make my class. I instantiate it here. This is bad. Let's do it together. Let's see what happens. So I go here. I start this off, and I go next, and all of a sudden, boop! I have both those things. Okay, how do I get back? How do I get back? There's no way back. There's no way back. Guess what? This main form is a child of the start form mother, right? This is a motherless child. The child doesn't know who his mother is, all right? You know why? I never told it. It doesn't know. There's no parent. There's nothing. It was just generated from this thing generated this form, right? I don't know what it doesn't understand. It doesn't know anything about anything other than this form itself. There's no knowledge of anything else. We haven't given it any knowledge. So I could, here's the structure. This is better. Let's go from bad. This is bad. Let's go a little better. All right? This is only a little better, by the way. It's not very good at all. All right? I want to go back. But I need to have, oh, look what happened here too. That's another problem. Hey, look at this problem. Hold on a second. Let's try that again. Next. I want to go back and I want to close this off. Can I close this off? What happens when I close this off? My application doesn't close. Why? I never told it to close. I never told the application to exit. I didn't do anything. When I close the X, the default behavior is hide my form. Okay, I hid my form. Is my application closed? No. It's gonna run forever, right? Yeah, it's gonna run somewhere else. Look, I don't even have an icon. I don't even have an icon for this thing. Do you see an icon? No. It's gonna run in the background forever. This is no good. So I got to figure this out too. But for now, let's figure this first part out. So I want to know what the parent of my form is. So this is a little better, but really still bad. Okay, we're still in the bad territory here. Okay, let's make something. Remember, these are classes. So in my main form, right? I want to go to my main form code. So I want to see the code for this thing, right? So I go again. I can go F7 for this thing. I can see my code. In the top of my main form, inside of my class, right? And before my constructor, I could make a public property, right? Called parent. I could do that, right? Actually, let's go back. It's a form, right? It's a parent form. So it's a type of form. And we don't know what the form is, right? We can say that this is the parent form, whatever the parent form is. I could do this, right? And I can even specify that the parent of main form is start form. I could do that, but it's very specific, all right? So if I did this, public parent, which is a type form, right? Okay, cool. I could do this. And then inside of my start form, I could say when I make my new form, which is my main form, I could say that before I show it, main form dot parent is equal to this. I could do that, right? So what am I doing? I'm making a reference to this form in the next form. Somehow I don't know, injecting, by the way, this is called, it's kind of like dependency injection. I'm injecting this form as the dependent or the parent of the new form, the next one, kind of. But there's a problem to this, right? And we'll talk about it in a second, okay? So, okay, cool, so this is good. Now I have parent, which means in my next form, my start form, my main form, I can go back, right? So in my main form, .cs designer, if I click the back button, double click the back button, I could say that, well, I want to show the parent, so this .parent .show, I know it's a form so I can do this, I don't care what kind of form it is, and this .hide, I can do that. Alright, do you agree? What do you think? I could do this. It doesn't close, it hides.
Yeah, so whenever you press X, hide?
Yeah, right now.
That's what I mean.
But what I want to do is I'm going to control that. I want to close, when I click the X button, it's going to generate another event. It's going to be the form closing event. Let's handle that one, right? So in the main form.cs, right, I want to go to my solution, and I want to go to my properties, here's my properties, for the form properties, and I want to go to this little lightning bolt, the events area, and instead of the load event, I want to go to the form closing event. The form closing event, that's new. And I want to double click, alright? So main form, when the main form is closing, right, when I click the X, what do I want to do? I want to do the same thing. I want to do this, right? I want to go back to my other form. Or, here's another option. I could do this. Application.exit. It's up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to close your application, right? Or do you want to go back to the previous form? And here's another question. Shouldn't you ask the user if it's okay? Otherwise, they might lose their work. For now, we're not going to ask the user. We're just going to close the form, okay? So here's how it works. Here's how this works, okay? So this goes back, this hides, and this exits. Let's see how this works. And by the way, exit's dangerous. Okay, so next. And then I go back, and I go next, and I can close, and the application exits. No problem. It looks good so far. And you're going to say everything is fantastic. Everything is not fantastic. And we're going to prove that to you in a second. Okay? Furthermore, let's go in my main form design. And I want to use this next button to go to my end form. Here's my end form, right? I want to go there. I'm going to double click on this. In my next button, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say, well, look, I want to capture this as the parent this time. So I'm going to go to my end form. Here's my end form. And I'm going to do the same thing, the exact same thing. So exact. It's begging me for a superclass, right? And I go like this. I say, well, okay, I'm going to make a property, right, of type form, which is going to be called parent. Yay. Fantastic. And then I go back to my main form, and in my next button .click, I want to say that the same thing. I want to instantiate the new object, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to instantiate every time. I'm going to say that, okay, cool, end form is equal to a new end form. Now, people who are watching this who are C# developers are going to cringe when I do this, right? They're going to, oh my God, what is he doing? Hold on, bear with me, guys, all right? So here's end form is equal to new end form. Yay, it's so exciting. And then I want to say that end form dot parent is equal to this. I could do that. And then I can say my end form dot show and this dot hide. Okay, we have all of our errors in place. Okay, they're all there in their bright glory, right? One more. I want to go back to my end form, right? Here's my end form. It's the same code over and over again. Don't worry. You're not going to get killed. Here's my end form. All right? My end form.design, right? My end form. All right, and now I want to double click on my back button. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to say that this dot parent dot show, and I want to this dot hide. And furthermore, in my end form, right? In my end form, I've got to handle the case where I am closing getting the close button happening, right? So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go up to the form closing event. Here's my form closing event. Double click. It's going to generate this form closing, and I'm going to say application dot exit. Exit. Okay, I've got all of them. So let's go over them again. So here's the first one, start form. Start form looks like this. Are you with me? So you guys are slow, right? I'm joking. This is new stuff. So here's my start form. I'm giving you to look at this so you can. So when in the recording you can see it. Okay. Here's my start form. Did you get this part yet?
Yeah.
Does everyone have the start form? Next, let's go to main form. Here's main form. Okay, here's what main form looks like. Except that you could also see this part. Main form also has form parent. That has to be there at the top. Okay, form parent at the top. It's a property I made of parent. Okay, so this is what I have. End form parent is equal to this, right? You're going to get an error because there is no end form parent, right? But the way I made end form parent is exactly like this. Exactly. So exactly, it's going to make you sick. Especially people who are, developers out there. They're going to go, oh my God. Now here's end form. End form looks like the opposite of start form. I have my pub form parent, and I have my back button, and I have my end form closing as application exit. All right, let's run this thing. And see what happens. So now I do this. Watch. I'm so smart. Next. Back. Next. Back. Next. Back. Uh-oh. Oh, man. Oh, what am I doing? Well, here's what's happening. What if I just do, next and back all over again like this? Next and back. What if I do this all the time? Right? In fact, let's just press this button a bunch of times and see what happens. Take a look at the memory allocation on the right. Take a look, guys. If you had a problem with flashing lights, look away. And it keeps going like forever. I know, it's really exciting. And if you take a look at the right here, see how it's memory the growing part, 23. Look. Right? It's 24 megs. Around here, right, it's really big, and look, it's keep growing. And if you notice, it's going to keep growing forever, and the reason why it keeps growing forever is, especially when I go back, watch, back, over here, and go to next, and then back, because now I'm keep creating these forms in the background, and they're there forever. In fact, I got a huge memory leak potential, right? What about if these forms, all they have is 1 or 2 buttons, that's it, and very little code. What if these forms had calculations, buttons, special effects, animation, all kinds of stuff, right? It could be a potential huge memory leak, right? Yeah, this is not good. This is not good, guys. This is terrible. And on top of that, we have huge code duplication, a lot of code duplication, right? We need to avoid this. We can do better. And inside of this would satisfy, by the way, the requirements of going back and forth with Lab 10 if you did it this way. I'm not going to get mad at you for doing little memory leaks like this for Lab 10. However, this is really bad, all right? Let me talk about a better way. So I'm going to application exit, and let's take a look at maybe we can do better. So let's do a little better. So in my program.cs, what if, let's pose the question here, what if I pre-instantiated all the forms at once? I made them all 3 of them. Form, start form, main form, end form. I made them all. Okay? And then all I have to do is I go from one form to the other by closing and opening all the forms. Right? I never instantiate, ever. I already pre-instantiated everything. Okay, let's think about that for a second. So, good thing, memory management is good. Bad thing, I have a lot of stuff in memory. 3 forms in memory at the same time. Right? But only one form is showing at the same time. right? So it's not so bad. Memory, you can see the form takes like 17 megs. Maybe one form is 1 more meg. Yeah. I could, but then I would have to instantiate them every single time. And that's okay. We can instantiate them. But I want a system where I can create all my forms. Here's what I could do. I could do this. I could say in my program, first of all, let's make my program public. Just to make sure I can do this, okay? It's first requirement. You need to make your program public. Next, I want to instantiate an object of type start form, main form, and end form, like this. Public, static, right? And then start form, which is start form. And then I'll just copy paste. Okay, now I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to show you this can be done, right? I could do this, and I could say that this is main form, and we'll call this main form, and this is end form, and this will be called end form. But what if, I'm just going to put it out here, we can do better, right? Because what if I don't have these 3 forms? I have 100 forms. Am I going to do all 100? What about if I have 1,000 forms? Could. Big application, might have lots of forms, right? So I want to do 1,000 forms here. I want to list them all. It can be really cumbersome, right? So we can do better than this. What if we had a collection of forms? Remember we talked about generics and collections over the last couple of weeks? What if we did this? What kind of collection would be good? I could make a list, but then I would have to keep track of, like, I don't know, or an array, but I could have to keep track of indexes. I don't want to do that, right? Index 0, 1, 2, 3, and then it'd be like I could do that, but that's weird, right? I think a dictionary is better. A dictionary gives me this like associative array kind of idea, associated list. Even a sorted list would be okay, but let's use a dictionary. So what does a dictionary look like? Well, you do this. So let's not do this at all. Let's get rid of all this. This is bad. All right. Well, this is not bad. It's better than what we were going to do, what we did already. It would take care of our problems. We would need parent, and we don't need that anymore, right? And all we know what the forms are, so we just say like main, and for the 3 forms, what I just did is probably okay, all right? But what if I want to future-proof my application? I don't know how many forms I'm going to have. I'm at 20 forms, 30 forms, 50 forms, 100 forms. I don't know, right? This is bad, right? There's better ways of doing this. Here's the first better way. I want to create a dictionary, right? My dictionary is going to be remember it has key value pairs. It's going to be of type string, and then my value, which is going to be form. And I'm going to call this, dictionary forms. My forms dictionary, okay? And it says, it's going to give me an error. It says, program forms cannot declare instance members in a static class. So I need to make this public and static, all right? So now I have my dictionary forms. It's not instantiated. Remember, it's a collection. Right now, it's completely not even instantiated. There's not even a container yet. I've just declared it. That's all I'm doing. Second step, inside here somewhere. And I'm telling you right now, it's probably best to put it between here because it'll throw an error. Because what it's trying to do here is enable visual styles and set compatible rendering defaults. And if you don't have a form after, if you try and do a form before, it causes an error. You have to make forms in here. Okay, so let's just do the dictionary in here too. So we'll say something like this. We'll say that forms is equal to a new dictionary of type string form. And you need to put this at the end. That is the syntax you need. So what this does is it says, okay, I need a new dictionary. And it's going to be 2 parts, the string and the form. And the string is going to be a name, a friendly name for the form. And the form is going to be a reference to the form object. That's what it's going to be. Okay, and then we can use the add method of the form. So we can say forms.add. And I can add in a new start form, right? And my new start form, it has to have a name. And the friendly name for the start form is start form. Like this. So start form is the friendly name. Start form itself is the class. And I'm storing a reference to an instance of the class inside of my forms dictionary. Yes? And then I do it again and again, a couple times. So it's a little better because now we have end form, and we have, sorry, let's call main form first, just in order, and we have end form, and we can say main form and end form. To access this thing, we would just go, instead of new start form here, we can say forms start form. Okay? Cleaner? Nice? It's nicer. It still has issues, and we'll talk about the issue in a second. Okay? Maybe you can see the issue already. But let's suppose I want to use it now. This is all wrong for the stuff I've already got in place. Let's correct everything now. This is the first correction. The first correction is I want a dictionary, which I've done. So here's my dictionary. All right? The second correction is I added stuff to my dictionary, just like any list or collection. Okay? This is better. So now I have a dictionary of objects. What's good about this? I can loop through each of the forms if I want to. If I want to check certain things in each form, I can do that. They're all collected in one place, which means I can turn them all off if I want. I can memory manage all of them if I want to. They're all related in some way, right? Before, they were all disparate. They were separate completely. For example, if I made 3 forms, none of the forms would know about each other, right? Here, we know that there's a collection that I could refer to. All right, cool. So this is pretty cool. I'm going to go back to start form, and I know that I don't care about the main form parent anymore. I don't care about this. In fact, it's kind of useless and redundant right now. I don't want to instantiate a new form. In fact, all I need to do, let's erase all this stuff, is say something like this. I can say that forms, but here's the syntax I need to use. Program, right, dot forms, and then in forms I want to say the start form, main form, and then dot show. That's the syntax. So why program? Because program is a public static object that exists inside of my namespace. There's no really other way to get there. I mean, even if I say using program, it doesn't really kind of work, right? So this is the way to do it. I can show my main form. I don't instantiate anything. No instantiation anymore. It's already been instantiated. Great. Now let's go to the next one, main form. Yes?
Program means main, basically?
Program is this program right here. Program.cs. Program.cs, this one. Program. Right? The static class program. That's what it means, right? So when it means start form, it says, hey, program, give me the forms method or the forms dictionary. I want to look inside main form and give me that reference, whatever that is. It's a friendly name for the form. I don't know what the form is. I have a bunch of forms in there, but I want main form, the friendly name for it. Okay? Are we good? Any problems? Okay, there's problems, but I want you guys to think about them yourself. All right, and then I want to go do one thing at a time. So up here, I don't need this parent anymore. I can get rid of it, right? So I'm not going to use parents anymore. And in my back button where it says parent.show, I don't want a parent.show. I know that the back is my start form, right? So I want to go to my start form. So I can say that program dot forms and then start form show this dot hide, and then the same thing goes. I don't change application exit. That can stay the same, but this part down here where it says that show will be the same as this with just end form. So let's copy paste that down in here. So this would be end form, and I can get rid of this. Right? Are we good? Is it better? Any problems? I'm asking because you guys aren't seeing it yet. You're not seeing it yet. Okay, let's get rid of this. Okay, and this is, I'm in end form now. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy paste this one. So instead of program forms, I want to go to main form dot show. Right? And that's all I want to do, right? So I'm good. Are you good? Are you happy? Any problems?
I do have like 20 forms.
Well, I only have 3 forms. I'm never ever going to have more. So I don't have a memory problem anymore, right? My memory, I pre-allocated all my memory ahead of time, right? So I have 3 forms, and I'm always going to have 3 forms from now on for forever. Okay?
If you wanted to add more, it would be a lot of work.
If I wanted to add more, you said it would be a lot of work. Well, yeah, but I mean, I want to keep track of all of them. But I do have a problem, and I want to show it to you. All right? So it's not going to be here. I go next, and I can go next, and I go back, and then back, and you can see that nothing really changes anymore over here. It's going to stay the same, actually, 16, right? No, it doesn't matter. I can do this for days, and it doesn't matter. It'll still stay forever the same, right? In fact, it'll even remember where I put it. If I put it down here, it'll remember. It'll be all good. Nothing is wrong. The wrongness is this. What about if I have, like my friend said in the back, 40 forms? Do I know the form name? Am I going to remember? Right now, I only have 3. Start form, main form, and end form. I'm going to remember that. What if I have 40, 50, 100 forms? Can I remember 100 names? Maybe I won't. And it's all strings. What if I put the wrong string name in? It'll accept the dictionaries, will not complain to you. It'll go, I don't know what that is. And then you're going to have to look through a whole list of stuff and figure it out. We need something better. We need to do better. We can do better than this. Yeah. Enum is what we're going to use. All right, we're going to use an enum. So here's how we work with an enum. We're going to go back to Solution Explorer. All right, and this time, right, we want to make a change. This is good, but we want to do better. We want to do better. For our little program, it's okay. For future fit, not so good. And we can even do better after the thing I'm going to show you. But we're going to stop. All right. So here, I want to do better than this. So what I want to do is I want to go into my Solution Explorer here, and I want to right-click on my project, right? I want to add, and instead of adding new windows, I want to add a new class. Let's add a new class. We're going to call this class, we'll call it the form name. Form name. Okay, now you can call this a lot of different things. I'm calling it form name. All right? And let's change it from a class to an enum. And let's change it from a private enum to a public enum. Here's my enum. Start form. Main form. End form. Num of forms. Why the last one? Why the last one? Why number of forms? Why do I care about num of forms? Well, not really, but take a look at this. Here I have 0, 1, 2, and then the third one is 3. Guess what? Number of form tells me how many I have. 3 of them? There's 3. It's a trick. It's a trick, guys, right? It says, hey, if I ever want to know how many forms I have, right, I can see that I have 3 forms, 10 forms, 100 forms, 200 forms, and then I can use this as a counter if I want to loop through all the forms for whatever reason, right? So that's one way I can do it. And also, sometimes I need to keep track. I want to go to the last form. I want to go number of forms minus 1, or whatever. And there's a lot of things you can do like this. Okay, so this is cool, number of forms, and I have my little enumeration, but now I got to change my program again. All right, so this time I can't use a string form. It's got to be of type form name. Form name. And the same thing goes here, form name. And then, once I have them as type form name, I can change this. So it won't be a string anymore, because strings are too volatile. I could do something like this, form name dot, and now I have exactly what I want. I have all my forms listed here. Start form, right? I have form name. Yeah, let's actually copy this whole thing. I got form name, and then it could be end form, dot end form, right? And then form name, actually I did it wrong, but that's okay. I meant to do main form. Here it goes, main, and then the same thing goes here. Instead of forms this, I can just say form name, start. Better? Better because it's longer, it's a little bit more difficult to look at, right? However, it makes sense because I don't have to remember the form. I'm using a dictionary and I'm accessing the forms. I pre-allocate all my forms, but there's a little bit of work to be done in the beginning, right? Which means every time I add a new form, I must change my enumeration, right? Add a new enumeration. I must instantiate it here inside program, right? So there's some work, right? Yes.
If you need to close certain, there is release the memory in the form. So when you set it again, we will start the row.
If I release the memory in the form, what do you mean? Like close it?
Yeah, when you release the
If I close the form, it will not release it. It will stay. It will be a null reference if I close the form.
no, just
Hold on.
You still keep it. It's not to release the memory, right?
If I keep it and I hide it, you mean?
Yeah.
Then it's okay, right? If I keep it, hide it, it's form. All the information in the form stays, right? If I close it, it's gone, and it also destroys the form, which means in my list, inside there, I have to make sure that it removes the form. The form is removed from, like it removes the form as a reference. So when we do a close, we have form closing. If we ever want to close the form and go to the next form or something, we need to go and update the form closing event and make sure it removes a reference to this form, whatever the form is. Right? Remove the reference and then allow it to close. Otherwise, you'll have a null reference. You have an empty parts inside the list. Right? So again, there's some maintenance to be done. Maintenance, but it makes it so it's a little easier. Yes. What was your question?
Can you make a method that generates a form for you and you run it as many times as you want? So that doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, but I can. I mean, I can. But what kind of forms do I need? I need specific forms, right? I can't just make generic forms. But yes, you could. Yes, you could do that. I could also remove a form. I could remove a form. I could erase a form. I could do all kinds of stuff, right? But that's why we want to use a dictionary. A dictionary allows us to, it's a collection, so I can use add, remove. I can sort. I can find. I can do all kinds of stuff, right? So this is one solution. It's not the only solution, but I want to be able to change all this now. So this forms, start form and end form. I got to change that. So I'm going to go through start form. So this is forms dot, and this will be form name. Right, this is in the next one. This is in start form. Dot main form. So I got to change that now. And then I got to go into main form, and I got to change all this. So this goes back. So this goes back to start form. So form name dot start form, and this will be form name dot end form. Form name dot end form. So, I mean, again, it looks like it's a little bit more challenging to look at, but the great thing is it's very informative, right? And this is what they look like. So let's go over it again. Here's main form. Main form looks like this now. That's all it has. This is main form. All right, so the back button takes us back to start form. The next button takes us to end form. Okay, that's main form. And then let's look at end form. End form. The back button takes us to main form. And let's look at start form. The next button takes us to main form. And so you can see that all of these make sense now in this route. And if I run this thing, it's smooth like before. So next, back, back, next, next, back, back. And I have my memory is completely stable. It's rock solid. It's not going to take a hit anymore from all the things it's doing, right? So if I go next and back, it's not going to generate new memory. Although, if you notice, take a look at this for a second, you can see that my memory continues to slightly grow. Why do you think that is? I'm not instantiating new stuff, right? So if I just hit this over time, and I kind of hold this down, you can see still that I'm getting a bit of a rise in memory allocation. Why is that? What's the memory leak? What's the memory leak? I'm not instantiating anymore, right? But yet, I still have a bit of a memory leak. I still see that the memory keeps rising. Why? Because of memory cleanup. Windows Form is not perfect. Remember, Windows Form has been existing for many, many years, right? And one of the things to note about this one is, even though we're not generating new memory, we're also not releasing anything, right? So what's happening is when it goes to the background, and then it redraws everything again and again, over and over again. In fact, what it's doing when it goes hide and show, it's actually some instantiation. Yeah. So because we don't know what happens in the background. If you want to see what happens in the background when it's show and hide, let's take a look, right? So here's what show does. If I run right click and go, go to definition, you can see that it'll take us to the definition of what show is looking like. This is what show does. Here's public show, right? So it kind of declares or forward declares this method, right? So again, we're looking in the control form metadata. That's what it is. And it says displays the control to the user. And by the way, if you notice what this is, because form is actually, if you go back, let me go back one more step. If I go to this form class, and if I go to definition, look, form is a child of container control. And if I go to container control, go to definition, container control is a child of scrollable control and container control. All right, it implements container control, and it's a child of scrollable control. Okay, and scrollable control, go to definition, is a child of control, which is also implementing the arranged element, component, disposable. All right, what about control? Does it have anything? Go to definition. Control is actually a child of component, which is implementing drop target, synchronize invoke, and so on, right? And if I go to component, go to definition, component is a child of Marshall by reference object, and a Marshall by reference object is the superclass. Does that make sense? It's a series of cascades, my friends. A series of cascades. And if you look through it, you can see now there's all these different declarations. These are all declarations of my class. So this abstract class, all it has is declarations. And every other class under it extends it, keeps extending it until you get to the final thing. So, guys, I mean, there's stuff going on here that you have no idea what's happening, right? When we make a form, we're actually making a very fat object, very fat, because it's like a cascade of inheritance. Remember when we first met, I said inheritance is kind of bad, right? That's better to use, something like composition over inheritance. Here's an example. If I change one thing in my Marshall reference object superclass, like example, I don't know, my protected Marshall reference object or something like that, if I change the name of it or if I add something else, it could break something down the line, way down the line, like all of everything, my entire Windows Forms application, right? Which can be bad. The really great thing about this is it gives me some flexibility so I can build out more stuff, right? I can go back. By the way, notice why I said go to definition. I can always go back. I can go back up a step. Look, back, 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 back. These are all the different child forms. Look, child. And there we are, back to start form. So whenever you have a problem, you can always go to definition and take a look at that, the parent of whatever the form that you're looking at, or whatever the object you're looking at in. So if I go back to one more, go to definition, right? Here's my go to definition. I can look at all these things. You can see that what these are. These are key previews. You can look at the entire class actually in one little go. Tab stop, topmost, top level, opacity, owner, and a bunch of stuff that doesn't exist in my properties. I can see them all here. Even all the event handlers. Look, these are all the event handlers that I can see here as well. Okay, one more thing back that I didn't cover this morning or this afternoon. What if I want this parent-child relationship, right? I want a parent-child relationship. I want to make my own form. Could I? Of course I can. I can make my own form class, right? Maybe I want to call it maybe like, super form. I don't know, like Superman, right? Or Superwoman. Wonder Woman. Okay, sorry, Wonder Woman and Superman. How about that, right? Okay, so Superman and Superform. We can also call Wonder Form for Wonder Woman, all right? Doesn't matter. There's no gender distinction here, even if it's something else, right? It doesn't matter. But what we're trying to do is, if I made this Superform, right, as an example, and it had parent and child relationships, what advantage would I have? I mean, every time I instantiate it, I have to kind of declare what the parent and child is, right? So it means the good part about that would be, if I went to my program, when I'm doing this, when I'm instantiating, I can also declare my parent and child. So I can say like, parent for start form. What is the parent for the start form? No, there's no parent, right? What's my parent from my main form, my start form? What's my child from my main form, my end form? And what's my parent for my end form, my main form? What's my child for my end form? Null, right? So I can do that, right? And I can do things like add parent, add child, and I can create a relationship between these two things. But now we're talking about linked lists or doubly linked lists, right? And I could create this parent-child relationship with a linked list if I really wanted to. There's also other things we could do here if I really wanted to do that. But the great thing about making our own form is we don't have to do a lot of duplication. For example, I mean, I don't have to make a back button and a forward, kind of a next button and all that kind of stuff again, right? If I'm careful and if I instantiate a type of my own form, for example, superform, the superform itself can have its own superform designer. My superform designer, as an example, inside there could have already a pre-allocated back button or a next button. And what I could do is I could make it so that you can override it, right? I can make it virtual. So virtual, we allow you to override those buttons, right? And it would show it, but then the event handler for those things would allow me to move things around, right? So I could do all that work. And then if I did that, then I would never ever have to make a back button and next button. They would just exist. So there's some things we can learn how to do to make it better, right? But again, it's like extra work for us to do. Okay, so questions around multiple forms and how to navigate. I think we covered a bunch of ways to do it. Some good ways, some better ways. For your assignment 4, there's only one form you need to do with a possibility of a splash form. So I gave you a lab 10 to give you bonus marks. That's what I really did. I said, hey, let's get these guys some bonus marks. Just like I did the previous thing when we did the calculator numeric buttons. Someone said, like, what do these 0 to 9 buttons mean on assignment 4 for bonus? That's what I showed you, like 2 weeks, right, to make the numeric keyboard and all that kind of stuff. Use that. And I also recorded how to do it and how to make some special effects, animations, and so on for people who missed it. Take a look at that recording, right? However, what we're doing here is allowing you to navigate, and you're going to need navigation for assignment 5. All right, assignment 5 will make you do navigation, go from one form to the next form, and the next form to the next form. And question, how do I pass data from one form to the other? That's one thing we never really covered. So I have data in one form. Do I have access to it in the other form? No, right? Because that form is a class. It can store data if I want to. But is it really good practice to store data in each of the forms? Hell no is the answer. It's better to have a data storage thing, right? For example, what is my application about? If my application is about, I don't know, some kind of health application that I'm doing BMI and other kinds of things, maybe I want to store health data. So if I'm storing health data, isn't it better to have like a health data class and then store everything in there, or a struct of some kind, right? So there's other structures we're going to learn how to use to do stuff. Bad, everything is in forms. Every form has its own data. Better, you have a class that stores everything inside of it. Best, you have a class and some kind of database that you can back up, or some kind of floating and saving and stuff like that that you can do, right? So remember that you don't want to store things. Each form is just a user interface. But your application has a reason for being. Your application, there's a goal, there's a problem it's trying to solve. What problem is your application solving? In assignment 4, your application is solving the BMI problem. I'm making a body mass index calculator. That's what I'm doing, right? I only need really one form and maybe a couple of other things, okay? But that's all I really need. What problem am I solving by making these 3 forms right now? I don't have a problem I'm solving. I'm giving you a demo, right? But let's suppose it was a problem like health, right? So my first form is my splash screen. My second form is my BMI app. My third form is my I don't know, calorie counter or something like that. And I can move between one form and the other. But maybe I want to keep one other class that holds all that data about who you are. Maybe another form to answer your name, telephone number, date, all that kind of stuff. That's another form. And it's going to store that inside of your, I don't know, your client profile. And client profile might be the class that I store all your data in, right? And maybe I have another form that displays client profile, and another form that allows me to enter client profile or edit client profile, and so on, right? So again, you know, you may need other structures other than the Windows forms in order for you to do your job. However, I have to also say that I've seen situations in business where they just use the forms themselves to hold the data. And what they do is they play this idea of pass the baton. All right. So if anyone's ever been in a relay race, you know, you have your first runner, right? The first runner running, and he takes the baton and passes it to the next guy. And then the guy runs with that baton and goes and passes it to the next guy, and keeps doing that over time, every single time, and then until the baton is passed to the last guy, right? And the last guy, your final form, right? Your final form has this baton and has all the data. By the way, that's assignment 5. Assignment 5 has that kind of structure. You have a start form, you collect some data, and then you have an end form, right? And your final form is going to have all the data and display everything in the final form, and get information from a database, edit the information, go back, get more information from a database. That's what your application number 5 or assignment 5 is about. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about in the next weeks to do that. So next week, for you, since you're going to be finished, right? I'm going to make assignment 5. I'm going to display it next week. So you have lots of time to work on it, right? From next week, week 11, until week 13. Maybe I'll make it even till week 14, to the last week. And the reason for that is because it's the biggest one, it's more complex, and it uses all the things we talked about on assignment 4, and all the labs and all the assignments are going to be combined into the final thing. And then you have your test, and that should be enough exposure, because half the semester has been about Windows, forms and stuff, and applications, and object-oriented programming, that by the end, by your test, if you've done all this work on your own and attended class, you should be fine. Your test will be easy, because I'll get you to do something you've already done. If you don't attend these things, and you don't do your assignments on your own, you're going to look at your test and you're like, what do I do? Yeah.
I have a question about the close function. Never really use it. Does it completely disappear?
The close function destroys the form.
Oh, so it has to be
If I destroy the form, I must reinstantiate it. It actually kills the reference. There's no reference to the form. So if I have a dictionary and I close the form that is part of the dictionary, that dictionary is now pointing at a null object, a null reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the way that you could close it, but every time you put next, you instantiate a new one?
Why would you want to do that? I would never want to instantiate.
Would it be better memory management if you're just not hiding your forms and closing them instead?
I could, but the problem with that is that then I would have to keep track of them somehow too, right?
Yeah.
So I would have to instantiate a new one, store it in the dictionary, and then when I close, remove it from the dictionary. I could do that. Yes, you could do that. Well, you have remove and add from a dictionary, right? So, sorry, what were you asking?
When we click exit
Yeah.
on the form, the other hidden forms, the memory is also released.
Yes, because C# has automatic garbage collection, right? So,
The application exit.
yeah, you don't have to. It's okay. All right. One more thing. Someone asked me, and this is the final thing we'll do today. Someone asked me about radio buttons and how to use them for assignment 4. People don't know how to do those things. Let's make the radio buttons inside of our main form. So in main form, and by the way, I have to put this, I didn't do any GitHub today. I'll put it all up on GitHub later. But let's go to our toolbox for a second. And I want to go to my container. I want to look at containers. I want to look at my, remember that group box? I want to use it again. So here's my group box. This is how I would probably do it. I would have a group box. Let's say I would name this group box. I would go to the group box and I would name the group box something like, I don't know, unit selection. So that's the unit selection group box, right? I mean, you can call it whatever you want. And I probably wouldn't put a group box text in there at all. I'd probably take it away. And then inside the group box that exists right here, I could drag and drop in some radio buttons. Inside common controls, there's a radio button. Here's radio button. And a radio button is like, you can choose one of these radio buttons. So if I put a radio button inside here, right, you can see that it says radio button. Right, and it's inside my group box. So in my group box, I put my radio buttons in there. And again, make sure it's in the group box, okay? And then what I can do is just make it more, I didn't want to do that. That's okay. I'll clean that up in a second. Let me just do this again. So let's make another radio button. I'll copy paste this one. I'll make another radio button over here. And so I have two radio buttons, radio button 1 and radio button 2. And what I want to do radio button 1 is I want to call this radio button Imperial. And we'll call this Imperial unit radio button. And this one will be called the metric unit radio button. Metric unit radio button. And we want to go back to the bottom and choose the names. So this one will be Imperial. These are just options, Imperial. And this will be metric. Okay, cool. So I got this. And then let's set the Imperial button to checked. So I'll go to the Imperial button and under checked, let's change this to true. Alright, so that's how it looks. Imperial, metric. Guys, you're almost done. Like, once you have this, you have the ability for you to switch between the two. Look, if I press start now, it takes me to my start form, which is like this. I go next, I see my Imperial or metric. If I choose metric, Imperial is checked off. If I choose Imperial, metric's done off by itself. No code, right? It does it automatically, all right? Now, how do I use this thing? That's the other question. Well, you know that whenever it's checked, one thing to tell you, it's true. You can also have checked false. If it's checked true, right, then you can do different calculations. If it's checked false, you can do other calculations. Or, if you're really crazy, you can make two events. When Imperial is checked true, or when metric is checked true. And if you do those two things, you can calculate different things, or you can turn something else on or something else off. For example, what if I had two different complete setups for my BMI application? One that showed all my strings that are in Imperial, so for example, inches and pounds, right? And the other complete different format, right? A different sketch, two different sketches, right? Almost two different layouts. Another layout that shows metric in meters and in kilograms, right? Two different layouts altogether. And when I press Imperial, it generates an event that hides a layout. Remember that table layout? I have two table layouts. One of them that is metric and one of them that's Imperial. Two different layouts. But I only show one of them. They're on top of each other. The default one that I'm showing is Imperial. The one that I want to show when I switch is metric. It goes on top. And I just keep showing or hiding the different layouts. Depending on which one I'm entering the data in, with my keyboard, right? With my crazy keyboard I made last week, right? I get the data and I can do my calculations, whether for metric or Imperial. Lots of ways to do this thing, right? Yes?
So you mean like make the icon color different, or make
I can do everything different if I want to. And what I mean is,
like
let's do an example before we go. Alright, so I have two table layouts, okay? So now let's go back to table layouts. Remember, I have lots of room here, and your app is supposed to be 320 by 480. Alright? So if I go back to containers, I could do something like this. I could say, here's my table layout panel, and let's just put some stuff on my table layout panel, alright? So my table layout panel for metric, I'm just going to have inches and pounds, two different labels, okay? Bear with me, guys. I'm not going to name everything, okay? I'm just going to do it quickly. So here's a label here, and this label here, by the way, will make it so that the anchor is centered. There we go. Here's my label centered, and I'm also going to make it so that the label itself is my text align, which is very important, is also center. Label 1, and we'll call this label 1. The text for the label 1 will make this. So we're Imperial, so it's going to be inches. And by the way, this doesn't have. I'm not telling you this is what your BMI should be. I'm showing you what to do, right? So inches, and I want to copy paste, right? And I'll put this over here, and this will be pounds. Don't worry about the label names for now. I just want to show you the things. Okay, cool. So inches and pounds. So I got this, and then I want to copy this whole thing, right? So copy paste. So now I have my whole table layout panel again. Look, another one. inches and pounds. And by the way, if I want to do it, I'd probably make it the same size. So this one is, I'm rushing guys, I'm not even thinking. This one is 231 by 115. Let's make it 250 by 120. So 250 by 120, just to make it the same. 250 by 120. And let's make this one 250 by 120. 250 by 120. There we go. It's exactly the same, except this one is not inches. This one is going to be meters, right? And this one here is going to be kilograms. And you can see that automatically kilograms is too big, and maybe we need to make this even wider. So let's make this wider. So the size of this, instead of being 120, let's make the width, I don't know, 130. And that still needs to be wider than that. I think it needs to be width and height. I made the height 130. Let's go back to 120. Sorry. It's just calculations, right? So let's make this, instead of 276, let's make it 280 to make it round. So I'll say this is 280 by 120. There we go. 280 by 120. And same thing with this one, 280 by 120. Just make them the same. There. Alright, so I have this one. Let's call this one, this table layout panel, let's call this one Imperial table layout panel. This is just for you guys, I'm doing, right? The other guys didn't get this, but they'll see it in the video. And then this is metric table layout panel. Metric table layout panel. And now we know that this one by default, because this is imperial and this is metric, this one here is hidden. So visibility is false. There we go. Okay? I'm going to take this whole thing and I put it on top of this thing. Okay? This whole thing on top, they're on top of each other right now. Now, I would only do this in the final stages. By the way, you can put them away and you can put them back during build. When you build, when you run, it just goes like this. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff, right? But here, if I run this thing, right, look what it looks like. It looks like I only see this, inches and pounds. And when I click metric, I want to change it to the other one, right? I want to change this to whatever it's going to be. Let's try that out. So how do I do that? I want to show my metric table layout panel and hide my other one, right? Totally different layout. Again, you can see where I'm going with this, right? I want to double click on my imperial, which creates a event, right? So I don't have to check. I don't have to check if it's checked or not. I can say that if my check changed, if my imperial unit's check changed, right? So I go back to, and it says imperial unit radio button check changed, right? Then what I want is my imperial table layout panel to be visible, right? And when I go back to this one, if I double click on this one, then I have another event. And by the way, I can do the same event. I can use shared event here too, right? But I'm being lazy. I can say that my metric table layout panel, right, dot visible is equal to true. Now what I'm really doing is hiding and showing stuff. That's all I'm doing at the end of the day, right? Yes, so you can say that, let's do that. So I can say that my imperial table layout panel dot visible is equal to false. And I can say that this one is my metric table layout panel dot visible is equal to false. Even if it's not, I can make it, force it. So one makes the other one false. There we go. Yeah, that makes sense? So then if I did that, and if I press play, you can see that when I go to my next form and I click metric, you can see that it says meters and kilograms, and this one says inches and pounds, and then you can do whatever you want to do. Now, the great thing about this is, you can adjust your layout. Your layout will be perfect every single time, as opposed to it being like going like this. Like if you change the units, then what's going to happen is your text box is going to go like this, and then pop out again. This way, all the text boxes will be in the exact same spot every single time, right? So again, guys, there's like lots of ways to do this thing. I'm just showing you one possibility, and this is based on a radio button, okay? This is not the only way. I'm not asking you to do it this way. I'm just saying you could do this, right? You could do a lot of things based on all the things that I've given you. I've given you a lot of building blocks. It's like Lego, all right? You literally can put everything together the way you want when it comes to Windows Forms. And by the way, this same stuff that you're getting works on every application that you've ever going to use in the future. They just do it a little differently, slightly different, but the ideas are the same, right? Questions for me? This is it closes off Lab 10 and it closes off Assignment 4. I'm not talking about Assignment 4 after this week. Yes.
I put the radio buttons.
Yeah.
Right. And I put the tab 1, 2 on the text box 3, 4.
Okay.
Then on the keyboard 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, you can do that. That's nice.
When running, I click tab.
Yeah. It goes the wrong places.
It goes from the radio buttons from the first radio button directly to the text boxes and then to the
Yes,
so
yes.
It doesn't go to the other.
Yeah, you got to watch that because what happens is it gets overwritten in runtime. So what you could do is inside your code you can set them up in runtime too. So when you run it, you can set the tab stop, and you can set the tab to whatever you want inside runtime. When you build it, it just you set all the tabs, right? All right. One more thing I got to show you before we go, and it's a properties thing. It's a properties thing of the form. If I go to my main form or my end form, and if I look at the properties, one thing to note, and we didn't talk about this too much, but there's something called the cancel button. I don't know if you noticed this. And there's also something called the accept button. Why? Because I can make any form I want, right? So I can make the accept button and the cancel button. I can make my own modal form, okay, cancel, or yes, no, or whatever, right? And so I can make an accept button and a cancel button. And I could do that in any form. And you're going to see that I may ask you to do that in the future. What's the advantage of this? Because the accept button will actually, you can make it do something, as an example, right? So, and then you have it's a special, basically all it does is it points to a button that already exists. That's what it does. So for example, look, I can point the accept button at any button that I have on the form. For example, back button. It detects all the buttons. In fact, it looks at the button collection, a collection of buttons that's on the form itself. And we haven't covered a bunch of other things which we're going to cover next week. Things that we could cover, things like list view, we're going to cover. Then there's going to be picture box. We kind of showed that. Progress bar, I've asked you to do by yourself, right? We've covered text box, there's tooltips, and a bunch of other stuff here you can see. And the other thing that we haven't covered is menus, which we're going to cover in depth starting next week. So menus, you can literally drag and drop a menu strip and make menus work like buttons. They can have their own forms. They can have their own events. They're beautiful, and it looks exactly perfect. And we're going to talk about those things, right? So those are all the things we're going to be talking about over the next little while, okay? Otherwise, remember that your Lab 10, if you haven't done it, if you haven't started it, it's due Friday at midnight, okay? No exceptions. You've had all week to do it, okay? And Assignment 4, when is it due? Still got lots of time. Lots of time, right? Next week. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next week, starting Monday.
For us, starting Wednesday.
Yeah.
You'll see us
That's correct.
today.